I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
Caminito del Rey. Man, that is like one of my favorite walks in all of Europe, man. It is just breathtaking. Yeah, just absolutely breathtaking. And you're going through this sheer-faced gorge. And at one point, you're walking on a walkway that's bolted into the side of a cliff, wide enough for, maybe 2.5 people, something like that. And you look down and you're looking down at solidly, 800,000 foot drop, like right under your feet.
Doesn't that sound incredible? That is today's guest, Lucas Peters. If you enjoy destination-themed episodes, you're going to love this one. Lucas is a true travel expert. He's the author of the new Moon guidebook, Seville, Granada, and Andalusia. And in this episode, you're going to discover what I would call a delicious stew of travel recommendations. About 25 or 30 some recommendations in this one, whether you're dreaming of exploring southern Spain's rich historical sites, wandering through whitewashed villages, perhaps relaxing on Mediterranean beaches, or immersing yourself in passionate Spanish culture. You're going to walk away with insider knowledge to help you plan an unforgettable adventure through Andalusia. Let's get into it, shall we? Buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for being here, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And this month, just so you're aware, we're going to be doing some destination-themed stuff like this episode, which, as a traveler, I know you love. We all love to learn about some of the new places we have yet to explore and sort of discover what types of experiences we can have. So I wouldn't be surprised if you come out of this one, either adding this to some kind of travel list you have, or maybe even booking a flight. Who knows? Lucas Peters, by the way, our guest, is based in Morocco. I would say he's a next level travel expert. He runs his own tour company at JourneyBeyondTravel.com that helps take people beyond the destination and give them truly unique experiences. And of course, LucasMPeters.com is his personal website, and he's written a few guidebooks for Moon. By the way, Zero to Travel listeners, we have a deal with Moon guidebooks. If you go to moon.com, you get 20% off with the code ZERO, ZERO, just so you know if you want to pick up this book afterwards. I always find picking up a guidebook to be a great sort of stepping stone to making a dream trip reality. I feel like just the minimal investment and the return I get of like flipping through and being like, all right, yes, I'm inspired. I'm now inspired to actually plan this trip I've been thinking about. So some food for thought there. By the way, one last link. I don't mean to make this a link party, but if you go to zerototravel.com/newsletter, you will find a place to sign up for our free newsletter, which I send out and write once a week. I'll leave you with a quote at the end of this that ties in with the clip you heard at the top, actually, to send you off on your way. A nice Spanish quote from a Spanish poet. And that's it. Let's roll into this one, shall we? Enjoy a little armchair travel through Andalusia. Lucas Peters, welcome back to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Good to see you as always.
Awesome to see you, man. Thanks for having me back on, dude.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have been in touch quite a bit over the last little while since we last had you on, and since you releasing this book on Andalusia, or how do you say it in Spanish?
Andalusia.
Andalusia.
El Andaluz.
Yeah. We need to do a deep dive on this place because, or this area, I should say, of the world, of Spain. You know, you have written a whole guidebook on the area. So it's like, well, you know, I enjoy talking to Lucas, and I probably would have called him up and asked him a bunch of questions. Anyway, let's just record it and share it with you. And so here we are. So welcome back, man.
Cool, man. Yeah, let's talk Spain. Yeah. Hola, amigo. ¿Qué tal? ¿Todo bien?
Sí. All of the above.
All the
above. When you don't know what to answer, just answer all the above. No, if people want a little more background on you, we can link to your other episodes because you have a whole backstory and how you ended up where you live, which is Morocco. If you can hear some
Tangier.
birds chirping in the background. Are you guys there for the long haul before we get into Spain? Do you ever entertain moving back to the States or moving somewhere else?
No, I entertain sometimes moving to Spain, sometimes back to France because we did live in Paris for a few years. So there is this idea of moving back to France at some point. But honestly, like Tangier is a happy mix for us. I mean, I'm looking at Spain right there, you wave, do a little hola, there it is. I mean, it's only like 7 miles away by ferry. So it's a quick jaunt over there. Wow. That's it, Okay. And lifestyle, you know how it is with kids and stuff. We just really like the lifestyle, the opportunity for our kids to, be able to do Arabic and English and French and Spanish and everything. So, so I think we're here for at least another 4 to 5 years. After that, who knows,
Yeah. How easy is it to get back and forth to Spain? Like distance wise, it's easy, but is it with, you have a different passport, but for Moroccans and Spanish, is it pretty easy to go back and forth?
For Moroccans, no. Moroccans need a Schengen visa. So to enter anywhere in the Schengen zone, in Europe. And that could be difficult because a lot of times, the Spanish government or the French government, particularly because there's a lot of requests, because there's a lot of Moroccan families living in Spain, living in France. And so they have a lot of requests. So they will deny requests. So one of the things we're actually dealing with now is my wife. She's Moroccan. She does not have her Schengen visa. So though we can go back and forth to the U.S., the U.S. gave her a 10-year visa, no big deal, super easy. Schengen visa was tough, so the last one they gave her, despite the fact we've lived there, she's been on a diplomatic passport working for UNESCO and all that stuff. And they only gave her like a 6 months visa last time, and that's expired, and there's no appointments to make a new visa. So, it's largely political, but it's also not super easy. That's the other way around though. For the Spanish coming in, super easy. Because Morocco is incredibly welcoming, very hospitable. So like anybody from Europe, from, the US, Canada, they don't need a special visa or anything. It's just your passport.
Yeah.
You can hop right in,
How much of those two cultures have blended? Because you mentioned them being so close as we sort of segue literally from jumping on the ferry or whatever over there. And they're so close, right? And, you can look at the world and say, well, it's at different countries and it's divided, of course, and everything. But borders have been drawn up in different ways over the centuries. So, there's, of course, this melding of cultural things and people are exchanging and taking things from each other. Where's the crossover there?
There's a lot, quite a bit, both ways. There's quite a bit. So in Spanish, a lot of people that have studied Spanish probably understand that quite a few Spanish words, we're talking in the thousands, have an Arabic root. So even in English, alcohol, that's an Arabic root. That's an Arabic word at the base. And there's also like Guadalajara. So Guadalajara literally is Arabic river of the rock. So you have a lot of like these kind of things that we think of as Spanish that actually have an Arabic root. So that's just in the language and the culture. There's a whole other TED talk by, I'm going to have to remember the name here. It's Elizabeth Gilbert does an incredible TED talk. And She's a woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, right? Which I really thought I wasn't going to like that book. I love that book, right? And I love her. She's fantastic. And she has a really interesting TED Talk. And on that TED Talk, she explores where we get ole from, that Spanish ole, and that to me is an incredibly magic thing, because it comes from the Sahara. It comes from like this culture, and it just becomes something different. It becomes a different sort of chant, right? But that's something that originally came from these caravans, entertaining each other and saying Allah, 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 as they're being kind of entertained in the night, just giving kind of that gift of music and dance and soul to something bigger than them, right? And that becomes our ole, So like linguistically, over the years, things have changed. Even like Gibraltar, let's say, which is in Andalusia, is ruled by the British right now, but that was originally Jebel Tariq, Tariq's mountain in Arabic. So like over the years, like something like Jebel Tariq gets shortened to Gibraltar, to Gibraltar, as we anglicize it, So there's a lot of this sort of thing in language that I find fascinating. On the flip side, being here in Morocco, in Tangier, my wife's aunt has never really left Tangier. She spent her whole life here. She's elderly. She's in her early 70s. She only speaks like Tangier dialect Arabic, right? She doesn't really speak any other sort of Arabics. And I asked her, I remember this years ago, I asked her one day about words like playa and bocadillo, and nabira that she was saying. And I was like, oh, so you say you don't speak another language, but her name's Nabia. And I was like, Nabia, so where's bocadillo come from? She's like, it's Arabic, of course. I was like, and playa? Arabic, and because like for her, she grew up with it because it's so in the culture, like in Tangier particularly, you don't say sandwich like you might elsewhere. You say bocadillo. You don't go to the beach, you go to the playa. You don't go to the fridge, you go to Nabira, so there's certain things that just find their way into the language here, that, and the culture as well. In Tangier, they still do that paseo, which, a lot of your listeners probably know about that paseo, which is, that kind of traditional evening stroll that you take, before meeting friends for tapas or something like that. Something like a lot of times you'll do with as a family or with, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something like that.
What do you call that?
Paseo.
Yeah,
paseo.
That's lovely.
And yeah, so that we do this in Tangier. If you go down the main beach in Tangier, there's a long boardwalk, and people are doing the paseo. Like that's what they do.
Yeah. So you can get right into the local scene by just going out on a paseo and just being one of those people taking an evening stroll. We call that a spaseretur in Norwegian.
Spaseretur?
Spaseretur. Man, I mean, it's not...
That's a whole other language. That's tough.
So I started talking Norwegian, so I got to get my brain out of it. Yeah, so it's just like, it's like a stroll. It's like a casual stroll. Just a personal question here. Like, it's the old adage, like you can take the guy out of America, but you can't take America out of the guy. Like, how much of that is true now? How much of the culture that we're talking about where you live in Morocco and then in southern Spain, how much of that has worked its way into you, do you think, and become a part of your either mindset or daily life or, like the way you approach the world?
Yeah, the flexibility with time. I think in the U.S. we're very Norway, as far as I understand it too, quite punctual people, right? Like like if we say 9 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock. Spain and Morocco even more so. Maybe it's not quite there. So unless I'm working with an American, like I definitely have the mindset of like we say here in Morocco, inshallah, in Spain, in the village there, it's mañana para mañana, so in our like a little hometown over in Spain, it's tomorrow for tomorrow, so it gets there when it gets there,
and what does that usually mean? Is that like an hour? You wait? How long do you wait until you give up?
Sometimes it's weeks, like it depends on sometimes it depends on what it is, so like when we were doing a remodel on the house, up in Spain, I mean, sometimes it'd be 2, 3, 4 weeks for a worker, that you need to like wire a particular thing or something like that. For deliveries, it could be, tomorrow, the next day. What it usually is though, it's usually like, oh, I'll see you in the afternoon. But that afternoon could be anywhere from after siesta, so after like say 4 or 5 o'clock until maybe 10 o'clock at night. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, a pretty broad window here. That means afternoon sometimes, particularly in Andalusia. It's less the case in Barcelona and Madrid. It's still there a little bit, but less the case there the further north you go. But Andalusia is still very, very, very much like that.
Yeah. My buddy's girlfriend lives in South Sudan. It's again the time thing. Like it's just maybe we'll show up if we say we're gonna have a meeting, and then maybe we show up, maybe we don't. I try to like embrace all the different sort of cultural norms and everything like that, and be open minded. But with this one, I still like. Aren't you like disrespecting someone's time? Like why do I want to spend 4 hours waiting for you, only for you to not show up? It's like you're killing me, man.
Yeah, it took me about a decade to get over that a little bit. Again, truthfully, it took me a long time, and even today, it'll still get under my skin occasionally. But usually, I understand that the idea isn't necessarily to be waiting around for somebody, but to keep yourself occupied elsewhere with something that maybe if they show up, you can kind of pull yourself away a little bit. So that's kind of what I find myself doing a lot. Is just like, all right, so they said this afternoon, so I'll be loosely around and.
And I'm sure that's pretty fun when you're trying to create like a new tour for your tour company, for example, and you're waiting on answers.
Yeah. So luckily in the travel sphere, it's a little bit different. So the biggest wait you might have in the travel sphere is waiting for like an owner or a manager to get back to you when you're really trying to like, get a specific date for an accommodation, right? Like that's one thing that sometimes I'll wait a couple of days for someone to get back to me because they're busy, they're taking their time, they're little by little they're kind of getting through their day. But once that's set, everything else actually runs pretty well. I'm sort of surprised, like in as far as like the normal things that go into like putting a really nice tour together, from your excellent guides, awesome accommodations, really good foodie spots. One of the things I love to do in Spain is like olive oil tasting. So I have a couple different spots. I love to take people olive oil tasting, which is something I didn't get into until just a few years ago. And then I was like, oh, you could really taste the difference. This is interesting. It's like, that's a really interesting thing to like understand. It's like the different levels, different kind of qualities, but also flavors of the olive oil and how they pair with different foods and all that. Like that, I'm a bit of a food nut. So like that to me, like I didn't realize they were that different, and so stuff like that is fantastic. That actually pulls together pretty well once you get going on it a little bit, and once you develop a few relationships, and once people understand, hey, I am American, so like I'm kind of expecting, So I would say, especially in the hospitality industry, they kind of do work with the culture, Yeah, some of the harder stuff is more like, working with, laborers, people in the farming communities, that sort of stuff, where they very much are rooted in that, that sense of,
Yeah, I didn't say that my attitude towards it is healthy. It's more like you have to sort of untether from your relationship with time and seeing it as like a personal disrespect if you're in a place where somebody's not showing up right away. Well, that's not like they're not personally disrespecting you. It's just a different way of thinking. We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop. Now, back to the show. Yeah, I mean, we should mention you do everything you're going to hear today. I mean, you do have the tour company. So if people want to find the guidebook, tours, the tour company, all that stuff, lucasmpeters.com. We can just link to that, and we can link to Journey Beyond Travel and everything too. But in Andalusia, why should people visit this area? Like, what should they expect? What, like, now you have to like sell the listener on why they should visit, because there's lots of places to go, but we're doing this episode on here. Why should we come?
Well, listen, man. First of all, I'll say it's not for everybody. Like I think like
I like that. That's a good start.
A lot of spots in the world, man. If you're, it's not for you, maybe. I'll tell you what I love about it, though. And if maybe that vibes with something, somebody fantastic. So what I love about Andalusia, I love that as far as a destination in Europe goes, price wise, it's still very approachable, right? It's not. Other than out of the feria seasons, like they have some of these festivals where like Seville can get pretty expensive or something like that. But other than that, like it's pretty, I mean, you can get a great dinner for like $10-15, and if you want like world-class, fantastic dinners, you can have those for like, $20-$30, something like that. Going out for tapas isn't very expensive. If you're around Granada, you have, again, I travel through my stomach, right? So like, where's the food scene sort of thing, right? But, Granada, they still do tapas, like a free tapa. You don't have to buy it separately like you do in like Barcelona and Madrid and stuff, but it's a free tapa with your drink. So you can order anything from a bottle of water to like a beer or something like that, a glass of wine, and you'll get whatever tapas coming out. And that to me is fantastic. You can have like 3 or 4 drinks, have a really nice light dinner, and you're about 10.
They'll bring a different tapa with every drink you order.
Every drink, wow. Different tapa, and then so around there, 10 to 15 euros, you've had a great dinner, which is fantastic,
Nice hack, nice food hack there.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. So I'm a big fan of doing that. I love churros, like churros con chocolate for breakfast. Churros with chocolate.
Oh, for breakfast,
like hot chocolate
there we go.
For breakfast is
now
awesome,
we're talking.
Man.
Yeah, ice cream. Some ice cream on there.
No, you wouldn't normally do it with ice cream, but that's like something that they do with that's especially around there. They'll do with like a thick dark chocolate and a churro. If you're not familiar, it's kind of like almost like a donut. It's like a kind of a fried dough stick that you just dip in the hot chocolate. And like what's not to love about fried dough and chocolate? Like that's fantastic, right? So I mean, and then you have, as far as food types too, you have because Andalusia is interesting because you have the coast from like Cadiz through Malaga and stuff. You have a really nice coast with a great fishing industry. So some of the best like red tuna I've ever had, sorry for our, vegan and vegetarian friends, but some of my best red tuna I've ever had has been like around Cadiz. You just find the most magnificent cuts of like sashimi grade deliciousness, and then if you go inland, it's more, anything from rabbit to lamb, to like kind of more traditional steaks and stuff like that. But you have kind of like more meats and potatoes inland. You have the seafood kind of thing on the outside. And behind it all, you have that we were talking about earlier, that blend of cultures, right? So you have a lot of, especially in Andalusia still, a lot of like cuisine that is influenced in terms of spices and cooking methods from Morocco and from, from the Middle East, which is just, oh man, it's phenomenal. It's just like the blends they're using, it's great. And then, for other stuff, you have some of the, if anybody knows like about Serrano ham and Iberico ham, like that's its own kind of speciality as well. And so you have some of the just like incredible bites to eat. So with that though, you also have great history, great culture to discover. Myself, I get into the culture, right? So I love, like everything from flamenco shows. I went to like my first bullfight these last few years. I've been to a few bullfights now. And that again, like it's not for everybody. I wouldn't recommend everybody goes to a bullfight. I just wanted to see what it was about. I figure, hey, if you're going to experience a culture, experience it, for better or for worse, and you can see it's not my thing. Like I'm not a bullfight aficionado. I'm not like a Hemingway kind of guy or anything like that, but I can see why people do enjoy it. And I can see why it's still popular. It's still at debate in the culture, but you can see why it's still popular because it is beautiful. I mean, just aesthetically, it is incredibly like beautiful, sad, but like a great piece of art in a way, like, I mean, there is a sadness to it as well. Cause you are confronting death, and what's the phrase they always use for that? At the end, the bull always dies, and that's sad. I mean, for me, that's almost tragic, but at the same time, man, there's a spirit with that as well that you can kind of, like when you see, go to a great flamenco show, you can kind of see that, the passions at play in ways that you don't, especially if you go further north in Europe and stuff, people tend to get a bit more closed in and stuff, just in terms of like how their public expressions go of appreciation, and, Andalusia is very much a place where people are, kissing you on the cheek and very, quick to laugh, quick to dance, also quick to scream, quick to shout, I mean, it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's also very true, so I love it for that, man. I also love it for the nature. I love getting out for hikes up in the Sierra Nevadas. I mean, outside of Granada, you have Europe's southernmost ski station. So like I'll be going up there with my kids in January. We'll do like a week, ski week up there. So, like, and with the mountains, you have all that great mountain air. You have all the really good hikes. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just a good mix. You go from the beach. Like there's a thing you can go from the beaches to the mountains just like that. Like in Granada, if you wanted to, you could go skiing outside of Granada and then finish up skiing around lunchtime and then, head down to the beach, be down, at the beach within an hour, put your feet in the sand and then enjoy the Mediterranean.
Yeah. I didn't realize that there was skiing there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they're getting enough snow to have a ski resort and.
Yeah. It's been, I mean, it's a lot. I think don't quote me on this, but I think the ski station's been there for decades, man. I want to say like 50 something years. Huh.
Okay. The people were passionate, you were kind of mentioning, right? Like there's just kind of really sort of, is it like a place where it feels like people are just like free to be themselves kind of in a way?
Yeah. It's incredibly I mean, things are public, right? So it's one of the places I've been in Europe for our friends in like the LGBTQ plus community. It's one of the more open communities I've seen around Europe. I mean, just like you're seeing flags everywhere, you're seeing parades everywhere. So when you're talking about openness, what I mean? It's strange coming from a heavily Catholic country in a way. Like to me, that's a nice like dichotomy that somehow makes Spain what it is, and Andalusia in particular. Where they are very passionate, but at the same time they want to allow other people to have those passions too. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing. It's not like trying to rule other people and what they should do, right? So you see that. You see huge support for the communities. You see. Yeah, I mean, great parades, and just a part of me though is wondering if, like, truthfully, like in Andalusia, they just like to party. So any excuse to party is a good excuse, because they do. Like, I mean, you'll see, like in our village, like we're in a little village called Encinas Reales, and it's a village of a little over 2,000 people. A lot of retirees, a lot of grandma and grandpas, a lot are old, like you wouldn't necessarily expect this, but a lot are older, like lesbian couples and stuff living together, up there. And the thing with this small village with this like older population.
This is where you have a place?
This is where we have our house. Yeah, no, we have our house.
Oh, yeah,
we
okay.
have like a nice little villa up there. And so the thing with this is every time I'm up there seems like there's a party every other night. And, you'll go out at 1 a.m, midnight or something. And it's a lot of like the octogenarian crowd out having a good time, which I find incredible.
That's amazing. In terms of experiences, I guess maybe just give us a little bit of a breakdown of Andalusia and your, let's say, top like 3 to 5 experiences.
Ooh. All right. So I feel like I talked about food enough. I mean, food is always like top experience sort of thing for me.
Yeah, sure. You got to go get tapas, right?
Yeah, got to go get tapas. So let's talk geography a little bit maybe. So here's like, because I think a lot of times when we look at a map, like where should I go? What should I see sort of thing. For me, I'm a bit more of an experiential traveler, but I also love, involving myself in history and seeing some interesting stuff and, whether that's history, culture, nature, etc. I think top billing for the region is definitely the Alhambra. I mean, you're talking about a old Muslim, like they'll say Moorish era, palace built in Granada, and dates, I want to say it was started in like the 1100s as like a fortress, maybe a bit earlier than that. But just a splendid example of Islamic art and architecture that has been mostly well kept over the years. And so that remained like a powerhouse of the Islamic nation there up until 1492, when the Reconquista was completed by Ferdinand and Isabella, and the ruler Bobadil was finally exiled. So that was when they had the Moorish powers finally fully kicked out of Spain, 1492. And it fell into a bit of a ruin for a while. It was abandoned, but then it was rediscovered by the Romantics, including like Washington Irving, who wrote quite a bit about it. So Washington Irving, if you guys don't know, he's the guy that came up with like the Headless Horseman, right? So we know him, and coming up with like this sort of thing. And so the Headless Horseman, but he has a really nice book on the Alhambra, and it's a mix of his time there before it was the UNESCO World Heritage Site and stuff like that. So he literally, like, he was at the time, I want to say he was the American ambassador to Spain, and he'd ridden by horseback from Madrid out to Granada, mostly because he heard about this, palace out in the hillsides, and he wanted to discover it. So he ended up staying there, I want to say, for a month or two, maybe longer, maybe a few months, in the ruins of this castle, or this fortress, this incredible place. But the Alhambra, I think, should be tops on anybody's list. Doing a great little guided tour there. It's 3-4 hours. Go through the gardens, and it is probably one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see. I'd say between that and there's like a mosque cathedral in Cordoba that is also amazing. Like, if you want a touch of that kind of Islamic history in Europe, those two places to me are just they're the kind of place that when you see, your mouth literally drops. You're just like, whoa. Like it has that sort of effect on people.
Pictures can't do it justice, type of thing. Like, you're just like,
yeah.
wow.
No, so those two are geographically are kind of the historical things. There's a lot of other like fortresses and stuff to see there, but those two I think are the big ones. Sevilla. There's the Seville Cathedral. It's the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. And I think that's, again, we're seeing it again, it's pretty amazing and all that stuff. It is the burial place of Christopher Columbus too, which is, for us coming from North America, that's a bit of a thing. But I mean, for me, like, it takes third billing sort of thing. For me, it's like the Alhambra, the Cordoba Mosque, and then after that, maybe the Seville Cathedral, something like that. And then the other things, the Camino. So there's a hike called the Caminito del Rey.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. Yeah.
Man, that is like one of my favorite walks in all of Europe, man. It is
really?
Just breathtaking. Yeah, just
wow.
Absolutely breathtaking. So that's
what is it? Tell us about it. How long is it? Where is it?
So it's in the mountains, about an hour outside of Malaga. You can get there about hourish drive outside of Malaga. And what it does is there still is a dam there, but it follows the old worker route from this village over to the dam. Back in the 100 years ago, they were doing the hydroelectric dam there, and you're going through this sheer-faced gorge. And at one point, you're walking on a walkway that's bolted into the side of a cliff, wide enough for, maybe 2.5 people, something like that. And you look down, and you're looking down at solidly, 800,000 foot drop, like right under your feet, it's pretty cool. But you're going through like this beautiful cut of the mountains, through this gorge. And then you get to see some of the old walkway that the workers used to take. And you're like, wow, imagine that, commute to work, on the daily. That would be a little frightening. But that's beautiful, man. You end up this really, really cool suspension bridge. I'm not a big heights person, right? So I like to say I have a healthy fear of heights. And the suspension bridge at the end was a bit of a challenge for me because it is bending quite a bit, and you feel the bit of the wind, and you're up there, man. It's a long drop.
Is it like a whole day long thing or just a few miles? How long is the...
Yeah, just a few miles. So I think most people probably you're going to do the hike in about 1.5 to 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
Some people maybe at a brisker pace can go a little bit quicker. How they do it, though, it's usually in groups of about 20 because they don't want you wandering off trail, and you are wearing like a hard hat, the whole way in case if there's falling rocks and that sort of thing. And it is, you have to, like, my kids haven't been on it yet because I think there is a minimum age. I want to say the minimum age is, you'd have to check their website, but it's somewhere between 8 to 12 or something like that. It's like the minimum age. So there, it's kind of not quite adults only, but you definitely can't bring the really young crowd with you. Even in backpacks or whatever. I asked and they're like, nope, sorry. You definitely have to be over X amount of age. But yeah, that to me was, has been one of my favorite walks I've ever done in Europe.
Okay, cool. Like something worth going out of your way for.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think especially
not that there's an out of your way when you're traveling, right? I mean, that's kind of.
There is like there is that kind of like, okay, it's a long drive sort of thing. Is it worth it when I get there? So like, at some point I'd say, yeah, it's beautiful if you're in the area, but it's not worth 15-hour drive or something like that. But this is definitely worth an hour, going outside of Malaga. And speaking of that this is a region, I think for me, I prefer doing it by car.
I was going to ask you, how should we explore this whole region?
Yeah, you could do the trains. Like the trains are super well connected. So you can do trains from like a town like Antequera that I love, or, into the major cities like Malaga, Cadiz, Seville, etc. So you can do the trains pretty easily. But the thing is, man, with the Pueblos Blancos and stuff, that, those white villages, you can only get there by bus or by car. And the buses, you can navigate by bus there. I've done it. It's slower. And I think a lot of us only had 2 weeks.
What are the villages? Are they?
Oh, man. Okay. So in the mountains, particularly, you have a system of like state recognized, what they call the white villages. And these are, each one's a little unique, right? But they're all white, they're all painted white. They're of, a couple 100 years old minimum sort of thing. Some of them are quite a bit older. And they're just scenic as all get out. You get into these villages, like Sentinel de los Bodegas is one of my favorites. And it has like cave structures, right? So it's like part of the main roads. It's like this rock overhang. And then the houses there are literally built into the cliffside, like built into the rock, So you have something like that, or you have something like Arcos de la Frontera that is really up on a hillside with like just incredible views out over the plains. But it's like in, the kind of traditional Spanish architecture. And so it makes for a unified sort of look at a village, right? That hasn't really been affected by modern building, so that they're really keeping to their, older structures. So you have that sort of authentic, man, I hate to use that word authentic. We'll say this village that has been relatively untouched by time. There's electricity, there's plumbing and stuff, but like the facades of the building are.
Is this
are
the
very
one? Which village is this?
Aesthetic. There's a whole slew of them, right?
Yeah.
So
but what you said you had a favorite.
So Sentinel de los Bodegas is one of my favorite.
You have to send us a list of all this stuff. So
yeah, I say Sentinel de los Bodegas. And then Arcos de la Frontera is another one. Grazalema is another one. It's right, and that's almost more. There's a restaurant there I like. Going back to the food thing, There's a fantastic restaurant there. They do boar. I never had boar before, but they have like a boar stew there that is just.
I just want to sit there right now. I want to be there right now. You're taking us there.
Let's go, man. And we go out for a mountain hike right after that. It's
sounds
great.
wonderful. Yeah. We're overdue. All right. Well, we both love music, and it's always a thrill to see like a musical style that's indigenous to an area, let's say. And we're talking about flamenco now. And I would love to learn from you how we can find a flamenco show that doesn't feel like a tourist trap, but feels like, wow, this is like something that locals are taking in, and I'm here with them. How do we seek that out? How do we find it?
So, yeah, my thing with flamenco is that there is, so that magic experience of running across that locals only flamenco program is nigh impossible, right? You have to be in the right village at the right time with the right people and show up at 1 a.m. at the right bar. It's almost impossible to do that, right? So how flamenco works in Spain is you do have some fantastic flamenco artists, and they do rotate, between like the different different places where you can do a flamenco performance. Some of these will be the caves. Like there's a really nice cueva, but a really nice cave in Cadiz. There's another one, a series of caves actually outside of Granada that are fantastic. You also have flamenco performed in situ in like these kind of patio homes. You'll have them more in like a theater on a stage. Flamenco aficionados will tell you that the best flamenco you can see is in Madrid. Right. So that's very much a performance. So if you wanted a performance with locals, you're going to go to the bigger ones in Madrid, because that's where the Spanish go. Like they want to see the best flamenco show, but it's more like going to a concert, right? It's more like a bit of a traditional concert, right? And that's not what I think in our imaginations, when we think flamenco, we're not thinking of like a stadium concert.
No, we're thinking of like a small bar, like rowdy. It's packed. There's rowdiness going on. There's barely enough room for the performers. It's like an energy. Of course, this is the magical experience in my head, but
yeah, no, exactly right. So like that is so hard to find. Like, so there is one town, Jerez de la Frontera. It's known for sherry, and which I didn't think I liked sherry at all, but sherry's it's a nice drink. So I've had a lot of fun doing sherry tastings there, and that's been my best place to find performers in that kind of venue where you're in that smaller bar. It's a little bit packed. You will see some locals in there as well, but it's definitely a good mix of like locals and travelers. To be fair though, once I've heard a lot of flamenco, I've also understood that's not the best flamenco shows. Like the best flamenco shows I've seen have been in the caves in Cadiz, have been on, in the patios in Seville, and in Granada as well. Those have been the best places I've personally seen it. And it sort of depends because they are always rotating. So, it's a little bit of a, who knows exactly what you're going to find. But by and large, man, it's still something else to see. You're still, supporting a local art. It's still going to be some of the best flamenco you're ever going to see in your life, for sure, wherever you end up seeing it, and, you and I, again, being into music, you're more of a musician than I, but I'm definitely, amateur. But when I see these guitar players, whoa, like what they're able to do on a guitar, just I can watch that all day long. That to me is worth the price of admission alone, let alone the singing, the dancing, the soulfulness and all that stuff. And then if you get into it, there are different types of flamenco as well. We think of flamenco as a thing, but there's actually I think it's like 7 or 8 major types of flamenco as well. So, there are levels of once you get into it, if you wanted to, you can go a little bit deeper. There's quite a bit more there.
Yeah, I love that. We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show. We should get a beach or two recommendation. Again, along those lines of this may be more of a hidden gem over the, this is a packed resort area type of thing.
Yeah. So I've been lucky in Cadiz.
Like you want to spend let's say you're traveling, you want to spend a handful of days at the beach, but you want to have like a cool little experience.
Yeah. So, all right. So I have I almost don't want to say them because I have a couple of favorites that are like tucked away out of that are like hard to get to. To be fair, man, they take. You have to want a beach day away from a lot of people, but you see a lot of locals there too. So it's not like they're not crowded. It's more like locals avoiding travelers sort of vibe.
Gotta lay it on us. It's just you and me. Come on, we'll keep it quiet.
So about 45 minutes due east of Nerja, which is altogether about 2 hours east of Malaga. There is a really popular local beach there that is strictly locals, and that's a pretty cool spot. And it's really obvious. The thing is like, it's named on I'd have to think about the name on the map because I've driven there a bunch of times. And it's just like, there's a parking lot, like literally it's a parking lot. And then you hike down, it's about a 1 hour walk down to the beach. And it by the parking lot right there, right? So that's maybe not a great one because I'd have to look it up on the map.
Well, no, give this is like that old movie The Beach where they like find the map and they have to find the they have to find it based on the hand-drawn map. Like, you're giving us an audio-drawn map here. Of course, that didn't end well. That didn't end well at all.
Listen, how dare you do the movie The Beach? What about the book The Beach? I mean, I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, I know. I never read the book. It's one of the ones I only saw the movie. I didn't read it.
Oh, yeah. Alex Garland, man. That's like one of my favorite vacation reads. I've probably read that like 2 or 3 times, man. That's a fun book, man. That's a really, really fun book. And that's especially if you read the book and then rewatch the movie, and you'll see just the movie's still okay, but you'll see how much better the book really was. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot more going on in the book. I think that's that you miss out on there.
All right, you sold me. As a traveler, like one of these types of destinations, to me, like what you're describing, just because we're on this topic, is it ever a thrill when you put something into Google Maps and then you just get there? It's like, oh no, okay, we've arrived. Like we're now on top of the pin. Here we are. But what is a thrill is when somebody tells you about some magnificent place that you can't do the Google Maps thing, and then you just like you're able to find it, and you get there, and you're like, this was their mission, and we made it. And even if you don't make it, there's something to be said about just being on one of those types of missions in the first place. So just throwing it out there, perhaps for a listener or two, this is one of those missions where you could be like, you know what, we're going to find this freaking beach that this guy beach. Lucas said on this obscure travel podcast,
I had to pull it. So I do have it, but I'm kind of with you now, man. Like I did have to pull it up on the map, but I'm like, yeah, no, I kind of like that idea. You sold me on the idea. So yeah, you head about 2 hours due east to Malaga. You have to. It's a car thing. There's no bus there. You could try your hand at hitchhiking, although a lot of that's illegal in a lot of Spain. But you could see about getting a ride out there. But where are you going is the question. So yeah. So anyway, there is a couple beaches like that I really, really appreciate.
Yeah, but how do we find the parking lot? What do we look for? Is there a 7-Eleven on the right? I mean,
no. There's like literally just a parking lot. Like you come around. It's like from Malaga, right? So you're driving. You're about an hour and 40-ish, 5-ish minutes into it. And then on the, you're going to bend right or bend left, on the road. So on your right is going to open up a bit of a parking lot, and you'll see cars there, and you'll be like, why are these cars
the parking lot's on your right.
Yeah. Parking lot's on your right. And then, sometimes you will see a bus these days that there is a bit of a road, so you can pay for the shuttle bus to go down. And again, it's a thing that shows up every hour, half hour or something like that during the summer. It's not year round, but during the summer. And I was there, and I was like, what is this about? So I had to stop and check it out.
All right, people got to let us know then if they end up driving 1 hour and 45 minutes east of Malaga and they get to the parking lot on the right.
Be like, what is going on?
Send a picture over to us.
So there are a couple of these beaches down in the Mediterranean that are pretty cool to get to. An easy one for me, if you were saying, if you wanted to unwind for a couple of days, that's the kind of beach that there's nowhere to sleep. There's a couple chiringuitos, we call them, beachfront cafes. So a lot of these beaches will have chiringuitos, so you can get something to eat. You can have a nice little lunch. It's a nice day escape, but there's nowhere to sleep out there. So if you're looking hey, I just kind of want to beach escape for a few days. For me, Cadiz hits all the little checkmark boxes. Right, it's a cool little town. They have their municipal beach in the old town, which is fantastic as long as no cruise ships are in town. If the cruise ships stop, you avoid that beach, but then there's other beaches in the newer part of the city. Just do southeast a little bit of the old city. Totally walkable. You're talking a 15, 20 minute walk. You're at these other beaches that nobody goes to except for the locals. It's just all local stuff, and those are fantastic, man. And then you're a quick walk to your hotel or, for tapas bars and that sort of thing, great flamenco shows,
idyllic. That sounds perfect. Cadiz then. Okay. Is there a festival or celebration that you would say is worth planning a trip around? I mean, again, this is all subjective, but I know there's a lot of, we were going to break down Andalusia today I wrote on my notes from festivals to food and everything in between, right? But we haven't talked about festivals yet. And I know you mentioned in the guidebook there being quite a lot of celebrations all over the area. Yeah, just anything that you want to highlight that could be hey, if you are planning a trip, you might want to catch this.
Yeah. So the ferias for me are either a thing you either want to plan around or plan for, right? So it's either you want to avoid them because you want to avoid the crowds and the additional expense, or you want to plan for it. So you want to be there in the middle of it. I've done it both, both ways. For me, the most fun looking feria is in Seville. They have the Feria de Abril, the April festival, and that one is, man, everyone's dressed in their finest, just walking around town, you'll see, ladies in their, the flamenco and gitana dresses and stuff. And then the guys are all in their bolero ties and everything, all really dressed up. That's a lot of that's really cool, like visually, right? So that's my favorite one, probably visually. That's also one where you will see some great flamenco shows. That's a lot of these ferias. If you are looking to do something like you want to see a bullfight or something, like that's the time to go, because a lot of them are synced up with the festival schedule and stuff. So you'll see some great flamenco. You can do the bullfights. Things will be a little bit more crowded, a little bit more livelier, but like double the expense too. So like you have to understand that you're going to spend a bit more money. Now, Sevilla, one of the cool things about the ferias are the casitas. So they have these like little houses in a fairground. And in Sevilla, they typically belong to families that have these little houses. So unless you have an invite from a local family, you're just going to walk around and you can't kind of get into where the real party is. So that one to me is a bit of a letdown. There's a couple you can get into that are a bit more public, but for the most part, it's a bit of, in that sense, it's a bit of a letdown. On the other hand, if you go to one like in Malaga, same one, that Malaga has their big yearly festival. That one is in August, and that one's it's open for everybody, So that one it's less visually, like people are a little bit more beach informal, so it's not visually as cool looking, not as traditional looking. It's a little bit more flip flops and shorts sort of vibe, but then again, it's a lot more laid back. So the casitas and everything are open to everybody, So that's a little bit more in terms of if you're actually looking to party, meet locals and stuff. That one's a little bit more interesting, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What about, you're working online quite a bit and you've got that thing going where you got the tour company and all the stuff, but also, generally a lot of your days are sort of the remote work thing, which a lot of people listening can relate to. And I'm bringing this up because I'm wondering, what about this area for like living for a month or more? If you want to do like the remote work thing and you want to set up somewhere and you want to have good internet and you want to have a great base and you're somebody, or you're like a slow mat, or you're somebody that wants to just like appreciate slow travel. And you're like, you know what? I don't need to like rent a car and drive all around this entire for a week. I'm just going to like stay in one place for 3 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, and just live. Which place would you go? Would you even go to one of these cities? Would you go to one of the smaller towns?
I go to our house.
Well, no, I know that, but people listening can't go to your house. So,
yeah. So Jason, when you come down, we'll hang out at the house too. Okay, you bring your family down. We got a pool. We got a bunch of bedrooms and stuff. So we'll hang it out there. We got great Wi-Fi, really good internet connection. So if
taking into account sort of like wanting to become a local and like a cool scene. Like having good Wi-Fi, decent like rent, nothing too crazy.
Yeah. So Malaga is kind of the easy one, I think. Granada's got a really cool college crowd kind of vibe to it. Actually, if you're actually there for a little bit, so Granada has some of my favorite coffee shops. And for me, if when I'm looking at like where am I going to be stationed for like a month or so or something like that. I want to know the coffee shop scene. And so for me, because I do a lot of, cafe work, that's kind of my thing. And so Granada has kind of a really good scene for that. And they have like a nice they have a bit like one of the biggest universities in Spain. So that has a nice kind of university vibe to it too, which I like. There's a certain youthfulness to it that I really appreciate. Malaga is an easy one though too. I love Malaga. I think it gets overlooked a lot. People are like the big three cities really are kind of for tourism or Sevilla, Cordoba, and Granada. Malaga, a lot of people say, skip Malaga, it's overcrowded. It's this. Well, Malaga actually, like not too many people hang out in Malaga. Yes, it gets some cruise ship crowds, but most people in Europe, they fly down to Malaga and then they're off to like Marbella or Nerja or somewhere else along the coast, right? They're not really in Malaga. And Malaga has some great cafes. It has like you got all the infrastructure you need, and it's not all that expensive, at the end of the day, for, if you wanted to do a local rental or something like that, like outside of the peak months, like it's not too bad. But yeah, I think anyone, for me though, I'd go for like a smaller city and definitely pay attention to the weather, right? So like you don't want to be inland in the summer usually because like you're over 100 most days, so you're starting kind of like June through, August, you're going to be 100 degrees Fahrenheit. You're looking plus 40 something Celsius, so like, unless you really like the heat, like I wouldn't necessarily be inland during this. If you're looking for like a summer escape, you're going to be on the coast, but keep in mind the coast gets busy. For me, the sweet spot for Andalusia is kind of spring and fall. And then you can kind of go anywhere,
Yeah. Okay, cool. What would be, say, your best counterintuitive travel advice for visiting this region? Maybe that is like how you're tackling the planning or just something you're doing on the ground. I'll leave it open.
Yeah. So one, the Alhambra, a lot of people forget to book their tickets ahead of time. And this is not counterintuitive. This is just smart. Book your ticket well in advance. I mean, I'm talking months in advance.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah. Don't forget your passport. Around. Yeah, don't screw around, and don't forget your passport too, because you do need your actual passport to get into the grounds.
Oh, wow.
So that is one place that you do want to bring your passport and make, a lot of people think, oh, I can just show up and buy a ticket. They sell out all the time, so, it's very likely you can end up in Granada if you hadn't planned, and like you have that one day to go to the Alhambra, and guess what? They don't have tickets. So that's one place you definitely need to get tickets for ahead of time. The other thing I would really encourage people to do is take a few guided tours from like real expert locals, because you will get so much more out of something. Like I've been like, as an example, the Alhambra, I've been there probably going on about 9 or 10 times, right? Like I've taken, friends there. I'll be going there again, in a few weeks. I took my first guided tour from a local expert about 2.5 years ago now. And in 3 hours, I learned more than I did probably reading through 4 or 5 books, and there's something about how an expert can like navigate a structure like that and be able to like point out the most important things. And so you're not kind of trying to remember the thing you read, you got the visual right in front of you, and you have someone at your level kind of explaining what you need to know, So I found like, particularly for some of the bigger monuments like the Seville Cathedral, I love a good walking tour, man. I've been big into the walking tours lately. But the monuments like the Cordoba Mosque and the, Alhambra and stuff, like I get so much more, doing some of the guided tours there. Couple other little things I would say. Don't overlook Antequera. Antequera is a really gem of a small city. It's right between Malaga and Cordoba. It's right over the mountains. It's about a 40-ish minute drive, I'll say, from Malaga, due north. And it has something a lot of people wouldn't think about, but megalithic stone structures that are the largest in Europe. So like think Stonehenge, right? So you have these kind of megalithic stone structures right there in Antequera, which speaks a lot to the prehistory of the region, right? So there's actually a lot of like prehistoric man in this bit of, Europe, which I think is really, really cool to like be able to discover and have it not too far away. You're not having to go then, like 5-hour drive somewhere to, find some caves that have some paintings in them. You're relatively, quick there. As far as like travel time. And those, I think, even though you might only be there half an hour or an hour, like it adds a certain depth of history and understanding and appreciation for culture, because you understand this culture has been around before we can read and write, like that's amazing, right? And so you have that. And then you have, also in Antequera, you have El Torcal, which is another favorite outdoor place of mine. And this is another kind of UNESCO World Heritage Site. But it is a series of stone structures or like limestone that's been carved away by, wind and water and, all that over the years. And walking around there, it's like you're walking through a natural sculpture park. It is just really incredible. And you can take an hour. There's like a few different loops you can do there. But like, 1 hour takes you on a really nice loop where you're seeing all sorts of different sort of structures. And that's something you can do with the kids too. So I take my kids up there every time we're in the area. And that's one of my favorite places to go. free to access. You know what I mean? It's just, you show up and you're taking a hike. Popular with the locals too. So I kind of avoid weekends there. So that's one of the things. I'll go on like a Wednesday or something like that. And the other thing for getting around though, if you are doing a car, I've had super good luck doing electric cars there. Right. So I've been able to like rent like a little electric Fiat for like $15 a day and spend another over the course of like 2 weeks, spend all of maybe 12 euros charging it, So
Wow.
like
Nice.
I'm getting around.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like I'm getting around.
Rent like an electric car.
Yeah. Cause like a lot of electric stations are free if you go into Carrefour or something like that, like they'll, your local grocery stores, they'll have like a place where you can charge up. There are apps where you can pay for a charge, but like I want to say the one time I filled this battery up, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 euros. Like when I paid for it to like get filled up, it was not much at all, So like you can, and if you're staying at hotels and stuff, they might have a free charging station for you as well. And on a single charge, you should be able to get from, probably have anywhere from 3 to 6 hours of drive time, depending on how mountainous and stuff you're in, how much the air conditioning is going or something like that. But I've loved renting an electric car up there because you get around really well. It's cleaner for the environment, of course. And it doesn't really cost much at all. You're looking at, I'd usually pay more than that on bus tickets and train tickets over the course of, 2 weeks of travel or something.
Right.
Like that.
Nice. Some solid gold in here today, Lucas. Thank you. By the way, if you're listening and you're like, this region sounds amazing, I want more. Then,
but remember, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like could be for everybody. Lucas has a whole guidebook on this published by Moon called Seville, Granada, and Andalusia with Cordoba, Malaga, and Tangier. Talk about bonuses. I always think like a guidebook is a great investment for anybody that's just considering, you're talking about, I don't know how much this book costs in various, let's say,
20
retail price, whatever. Yeah, for $20,
20 euros, $20, 20
and
Canadian dollars.
Like,
I don't know.
I'm going to just invest in seeing if there's enough here that I want to, build a whole trip around this. And then you can do that, or you can just have it on your shelf and maybe consider it one day. I don't know. I like to have them around. They're fun. And you write great ones. So congratulations on another one. I don't know how you do it. I have no idea how you're writing all the guidebooks and doing the tour company and all the things. But if people want to see all the things, they can go to lucasmpeters.com and we'll link up to that. And I'm going to ask Lucas if he can kindly send over a list of these things mentioned today, just because I can't spell in Spanish so good. And then we're actually putting together a resource for everybody listening to all these destination themed episodes that they could just go on and find all of the things in all the areas that were mentioned here on the pod. So thanks, man. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. Yeah, I feel it's a big.
I know we missed a lot of things.
Yeah,
but.
No,
I mean, if you want to lay down one more sort of like hidden gem that didn't make it into the book, we're not going to say no.
Counterintuitive stuff. Skip Gibraltar. I mean, I have to write about Gibraltar. It's on a lot of people like, hey, I want to see Gibraltar. For me, you can totally skip it. I've been there a bunch of times, and I don't know. I don't see the charm there, right? There's so many, for me, more interesting places to go. But, we didn't talk about Ronda at all today. Ronda's fantastic, I feel like, we can definitely go. We could do a whole episode probably just on Sevilla or something like that, or, Cordoba. I don't know. There's a lot of, just keep in mind, I'd say for listeners out there, just keep in mind, man, it is a relatively big area to cover. If you're looking at traveling the whole thing, you're going to need at least 2 weeks to get a good mix of stuff. And you can easily travel 3-4 weeks there. There's enough to see and do, to do a 3-4 week kind of deep dive just in Andalusia. And if you are like a slow mat, or you are, looking for a place to hub up, I know a lot of people go to Barcelona, for just in terms of like saving money and having better weather. I'd go Malaga. That's me. That's my personal sort of take on that. I know people love Barcelona. I really prefer Malaga in a lot of ways. Similar, but I kind of prefer Malaga there. But for the coffee, go to Granada. always go to Granada for the coffee.
Love it. I'm a big coffee guy. So, yeah. Well, maybe we can meet up in your little villa one day and we'll catch a random flamenco show somehow. That's when my dreams will be fulfilled. Or you could just take flamenco guitar and start working on it, and I'll come down and watch you play.
I'll have to get the dancers and everything, man. I'll work on it. I got to work on my
I'll
clapping,
work on the dancing. You work on the guitar thing. All right, man. Thanks so much for your time, and look forward to having you back again. Who knows when, but I'm sure again soon.
Fantastic, man. Great to talk to you as always, man. Thanks, Jason.
Likewise. Cheers.
Hasta luego.
There you have it. Thank you to Lucas Peters for his time. I want to thank the folks at Moon Guidebook, specifically Claire, for helping to arrange some of these interviews. I love to get these true travel experts on to give us the on-the-ground experiences that we don't want to miss as travelers, those hidden gems. And I hope you enjoyed this one and got a load of value out of it. I am going to leave you with a quote from a Spanish poet. I found it online. It's in Spanish, but then they translated it. So I hope I don't butcher this too much, but I'm going to go for it, okay? Learning a language is about not being afraid to put yourself out there and just try it, even though you're going to probably make some mistakes, and hopefully they're not too embarrassing. I can tell you I've made plenty of embarrassing mistakes, but people are generally very forgiving when you tell them, for example, when you tell your entire Norwegian class that you have an internet website about spanking instead of travel because you mispronounced the word for travel. But, is that a real story? Yeah. Yes, it is. It is a real story. I did say that to my class. Okay. All right. You got to be able to laugh at yourself. You just do. All right. Let me go for this here. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Sorry, Spanish speakers. I know I butchered it. Anyway, the translation that I read is that it says, traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking. And that is a quote from Antonio Machado, the Spanish poet. And I think it's a great one. I mean, it had traveler in it, of course. It was related to the quote at the top with one of the hiking recommendations that Lucas shared. But of course, much deeper meaning here. We have to create our own paths in life. And where we don't find one, you got to make one. And you got to get on it and just start making it. So perhaps you're walking a new path right now, and I commend you for that, because I've been walking a few new ones lately, and I got to say, the self-doubt's creeping in. It's not always easy, but, let's all just keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep rocking and rolling through this life. Peace and love to you and yours, my friends, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.